It's very rare that you have contractors who are engaged with you on all levels of your business. And I'm currently involved with a project with Rite Construction, and they have been doing an amazing job. And my seller is completely knocked off his socks by the work that they've done and the timeline that they've been able to achieve. So we're really excited to have him here today. This will be the first time in the Market Center that we're having a contractor come in and do a class. So we're going to be doing this more, and hopefully we'll be able to draw a lot more agents in, because it's an area that, you know, it's not real popular. So but it's necessary, and it's absolutely a detail of the real estate business that we've got to engage in. So it's really important to get the right people and have great talent. So Benjamin?
So, Rite Fast Construction, that's me, Rite Fast Construction. Why Rite Fast Construction? I wanted a name that was franchisable. And I also like the fact that we base what we do on doing it right and doing it fast. We're not cheap, but we are efficient and we do a good job. All general contractors that I knew were really good at their craft. They're all very talented tradesmen, and but they weren't really good when it came to the two key areas to make a business work. The other two key areas, one is client communication, and the other one's actually running your business and making sure you got enough money in the bank and that you're taking care of your clients properly. So that's us, Rite Fast Construction. We're a general contractor. We do all kinds of stuff. We do additions and ground up construction, commercial, as well as residential. A lot of bathrooms, a lot of kitchens. We're doing this, I said, since 1990. I didn't know what number to put there because I've been doing it most of my life, but I figured that was a reasonable assessment. We have over 5 pages deep of positive reviews on Angie's List, 15 or 20. I think the lowest we have on there is like a B- or something like that from one. Everybody else is an A+, which gave us the Super Service Award winner for Angie's List for 2012. 50% of our clients ask us back to do more work. Now, we don't necessarily get everything that they ask us back to do. Sometimes they don't do it. Sometimes they give it to somebody else, but we do get called back 50% of the time. I just had 2 clients from El Segundo. They're actually across the street and 10 houses apart, call me back within 2 weeks of each other to do more work on their houses because they were so happy with the work that we did. And like I said, we are homeowners too, so there's a little bit of empathy on my side of the street. I understand what it's like to have your life disrupted. I understand what it's like to have, I've had shoddy work done. I've had contractors leave in the middle of jobs. I've had fights with contractors on my own property that I worked with, and I watched my family go through the trials and tribulations of all the things that anybody who's ever hired a contractor has been through. So what we're going to talk about today is licensed contractor versus owner builder. If you're in the real estate business, like you all are, you're agents, and especially these days, everybody is super, super cost conscious. You know, it occurred to me when I was talking to Tony earlier that, you know, we're in a different sort of economy over the last 10 or 15 years. You know, there was a time when you could be a real estate agent and you could sell a house and that was good enough, or you could list a house, or but now everybody's trying to maximize every dollar. And like what Tony talked about with one of the Phil Giogrande, her producer of her show, who we did his condo, she advised him to do a little bit of work to his condo before he sold it. So I think it's more and more important as agents to offer a little bit more service, to separate yourself from, you know, just another agent. So here we go, things to know about home construction. Why do you need a licensed contractor? Owner builder risks, how to check the status of a license. That's the California State License Board. Tons of information, finding the right licensed contractor. Questions to ask your contractor before selecting them. Workers' compensation, insurance, liability, bonding. Checklist for hiring your contractor. What needs to be in the contract? Do I need a building permit for my project? And last but not least, conditional and unconditional waivers and release forms. Sounds a little bit dry. I'll try to make it somewhat interesting. Some general information about home construction. Most licensed contractors are competent, honest, hardworking, financially responsible. That's me. Most of the problems reported to the Contractor State License Board could be prevented if homeowners were educated. 1/3 of the calls that I get are to fix somebody else's problem on a project. It's either done improperly, it was done without permits, they tried to do it themselves. Contractor walked out in the middle of the job, we got a fight. 1/3 of the calls I get are, hey, here's what's happened, can you help me? And sometimes I can, and sometimes I cringe. So if you're informed consumer can help avoid being victimized by unscrupulous or unlicensed operators. Some of this wording is a little funky, but I got it right off of the California State License Board. Anybody who performs any project valued at $500 or more for combined labor and material costs have to have a valid license. $500, that's the threshold. And that includes material and labor. Does that always happen? Of course not. But that's the law. Anything that I put out, any sort of advertising, my business cards, my truck, newspaper flyers, all have to have my state license, contractor's license number on the form. So any contracting forms, everything that I put out, my business cards, any piece of paper, all my letterhead. There's 43 different classifications of licenses. General contractors, swimming pools, landscapers, painters, electricians, plumbers, and many more. I'm a general contractor, which allows me to do pretty much anything. There's some restrictions as to what I can do as far as how many trades on every job that I can perform. It's a little more technical, but that gives you a basic idea. So what a lot of people don't know about why you need a licensed contractor, in order to get my contractor's test, I had to get my contracting license. I had to prove knowledge of my craft, which I had to say that I've had at least 5 years experience as a journeyman or a supervisor. I had to have somebody sign off on that work, that I had worked for them. I have to pass the test, of course, which is 3 hours, 5 hours, I don't know, it's long. It's 5 hours, 2 3-hour part-time long. It's a lot on there. Fingerprinted, I'm bonded, I had to undergo an FBI background check. Every contractor has to do this in order to get a license. So if you don't have something permitted and inspected and the city happens to find out, they can, if it's an illegal garage conversion, for instance, they can ask you to remove everything you've done. I've actually known of some instances where they have somebody converted an illegal unit and they made them not only remove the bathroom toilet, but they actually poured concrete down the drain. The inspector stood there while they mixed up batch concrete and made them pour concrete down the drain. Wow. All that money, gone. $50,000, gone. So don't waste your money. Don't throw your money away. The average cost of an addition in Los Angeles, and this is if you're adding something on the back of a house, is about $250 per square foot. That's generally what I tell people when they ask me to come out and put a bid. You want to put 400 square feet on the back of your house? If I'm not going up, that's pretty much average. The average selling price in Los Angeles, at least on the west side, is about $700 a square foot. So let's say it's only $500 a square foot. So you decide I'm going to illegally convert my garage and I'm going to spend $50,000. And then you go to sell your house. Guess what? You're not going to get that money back. Because me, as a buyer, I'm not interested in unpermitted work. It actually becomes a liability. Because if I buy your property and something goes wrong, or if the city comes out and finds out after I buy it, I'm responsible for it. And I got to go chase after you. There's no contractor of record, so I can't chase after him. So it actually is a warning sign to a lot of buyers to stay away. So another reason why not to do unlicensed work or try to do it yourself or not getting permits So owner-builder risks. Lots and lots of people like to try to do it themselves. I got no problem with that. I've done lots of work myself. But once again, if someone's injured or the subcontractor is not licensed, they don't carry any insurance, you end up liable. You could be asked to pay for injuries and rehabilitation through your homeowner's insurance, or face lawsuits, or face lawsuits is what it should say. So if you go out and hire a subcontractor and you're doing owner builder and they get hurt, you're liable. You're liable for anything that goes wrong. You're liable if that guy cuts off his thumb. You're liable. And I've actually know a good friend of mine, the reason I brought that up, another friend of mine up the street did the same thing. He went out and hired a guy was a totally competent builder, great guy, literally hit his thumb with the skill saw and went after him for workers' comp, went after his homeowner's insurance. It was a nightmare for this guy. So be careful. That's if your homeowner's insurance, of course, his homeowner's insurance didn't want to pay for it, right? Because insurance companies don't like to pay. It was a long, drawn-out battle. Subcontractors and suppliers are not paid on schedule. May file a mechanics lien. I'll go into mechanics liens briefly. You should be cautious about unlicensed individuals claiming to be contractors. They'll promise to guide you through the owner-builder process for a consulting fee. That is breaking the law. You're not allowed to do that. And of course, mistakes can be costly and take additional time to repair. As an owner-builder, you assume full responsibility for your project and its integrity. Once again, owner-builder beware, you are ultimately responsible. All the time I get the question, why do I have to hire a contractor? Well, as a general contractor, I'm ultimately responsible. Anything goes wrong with your project, anywhere from 5 to 10 years, if I work on your house, anywhere from 5 to 10 years, you can call me back. I am liable. I am required by law to guarantee my work between 5 and 10 years. Lots of people try not to do that, but the law pretty clearly states that if I do it, it's warranted. So,
and is that in a contract?
Generally, that's in contracts. Yeah, all the contracts, and even it's implied just by carrying that state licensed contractor card. The state says so. Even if I don't put it in the contract, or even if I try to limit my liability, you see that a lot. You see, ride at your own risk. Well, the truth is that you can't waive your rights. So even if I try and limit my liability, I'm still liable. See how to check a license. Checking the status of a license. You'd be surprised how few people actually do this. You would think they call a licensed contractor and they check the license. It takes about 10 seconds to do this. It's really simple. California has some fantastic websites. This one works really, really well. Everything you could possibly dream about, all the tips, all the information regarding repairing your house, mechanics liens, checking the contractors, insurance bonds, complaints, everything that I'm talking about here, almost everything is available on the cslb.ca.gov. It's as simple. First page has this little box here, giant red box says instant license check. Next page has business name. Click, click, you put in the name, and up comes all my information. How long I've been licensed, who my insurance company is, who my workers' comp is, how big is my bond, what my phone number is, what my address, is there any complaints against me? Everything comes up. If you check a third of the information that I'm giving out, you'd be about 90% above everybody else who doesn't really check anything. They assume you're a licensed contractor because you say you're a licensed contractor and you're holding a licensed contractor card. Could be expired. My bond could have been revoked. Finding the right licensed contractor. That is a sample. It's really hard to read of what my contractor card looks like. I have it in my pocket. Contractor must carry it at all times. It's like your driver's license. I don't leave home without it. Almost nobody ever asks to see it. I go on multiple jobs every week and make bids. 1 out of 10 actually has to see this. And this is pretty important. I mean, it's got my information on here. It's got the number one part, which is my contractor's license number. So the risks and financial possible legal consequences outweigh the benefits a lower bid may seem to offer. Get at least 3 bids on your project. Make sure you're comparing bids based on identical plans, specifications, and scope of work. A huge percentage of the battle that I face every day in making bids with people or talking to clients and going out is, man, you know, that's 20 grand higher than the last guy, or 10% higher, or $5 higher, or whatever the number is. And one of the things I tell people right off the bat is I'm generally not going to be the lowest guy on the block, because there's people out there that are getting jobs, especially in the economy we just came through, that are just trying to keep their doors open and will bid a job at anything. So get at least 3 bids. Make sure you're comparing them. Do not automatically accept the lowest bid. The lowest bid is substantially lower than the others. There's probably something wrong with it. It's too good to be true. Usually is. A lot of times it indicates that they left something out either on purpose or by mistake. Now this is the biggest one, and I put this one in there myself, and it wasn't on the CSLB. The lowest bidder may just be trying to get his foot in the door and will ask for more money after the project has begun. The number one trick of all contractors, number one thing that they do out there is this. Sure, I can do it in 2 weeks for $20,000. No problem. I know you're going to change things. I know your clients are going to ask for changes, and I know that when some in there and the walls are ripped open and this person's been complacent, completely disrupted, you don't really have a choice. It's kind of like the mafia. You know, it's like once you get in there, you start borrowing money, it's really hard to get out. So that's the number one trick. Easily avoided. Easily avoided. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. If it's at 20-30% less than my bid or somebody else's competitive bid, it's probably somebody trying to get their foot in the door, trying to keep their doors open. They're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. It's a very competitive business out there, and this happens the majority of the time. I lose a lot of bids because I don't play this game with people. I tell them up front. When I quote a time frame to get a job done, I'm usually adding 50% to what I really think it's going to take. We did Phil's job, for instance. We told him 4 weeks, we did it in like 2 weeks and a day. I would much rather over deliver. It's, you know, that's the other trick is, oh yeah, I can do it in 2 weeks. Nothing gets done in 2 weeks, just about. So be wary of the low bidder. Of course, the work could be they're cutting corners or they're doing substandard work just to make a profit. A lot of very inexpensive materials out there, and a lot of them, they're not going to hold up. So, on to mechanics liens, because nothing's more exciting than a mechanics lien. And almost nobody even knows about mechanics liens. Probably on your test when you took your real estate license. I had my real estate license in 1980-something, 6, 7. I believe it was on the test then. It's probably on the test now. You've probably all forgotten about it. And almost every homeowner has no idea what you're talking about. They think it has to do with their car. It's not. It's their house. Somebody doesn't get paid, they can file a mechanics lien. Something you need to be aware of. Mechanics lien is a whole against your property, and it's recorded with the county recorder's office. And when they do a title search, when you try to get titles, they'll find the mechanics lien on the title, and you can't do anything. You can't get around a mechanics lien very easily. You won't be able to sell your house. You'll get it refinanced. It's very, very dangerous, and it can happen. And it usually happens when either a dispute arises, or someone's trying to do it themselves, and the subcontractor doesn't get paid. And they file a mechanics lien. And it's very, very easy to file a mechanics lien, by the way. It's not very complicated. You can get the forms right off of the old state license board website, and it can really, really hinder someone's ability to do a lot of things. A lien can result when the prime contractor has not paid his subcontractors, labor, and suppliers. Legally, the homeowner is ultimately responsible, even if they've already paid the contractor. So it's really important to have this stuff in your contract. And if you look in what I put on the table there, you'll find a form that says release and waiver liability, unconditional waiver and release of final payment. Notice to complainant, that would be me. This document waives and releases liens, stop payment notices, payment bond rights, unconditionally, and states that you have been paid for giving up the rights. This document is enforceable if you sign it. You have been paid. Almost nobody does this. Almost nobody, no homeowner asks for it. I give it to homeowners when I do my contracts. It's in my contract. I bring it to them. I show it to them. This is something that clears the homeowner of getting mechanics lien. This will stop mechanics liens. Not always, but most of the time it states pretty clearly, I've been paid, everybody else has been paid, and there's no more actions being taken on the contract. Some of the things that can result in a mechanics lien if the homeowner doesn't pay, foreclosure. I can force a foreclosure with a mechanics lien. You can pay twice for the same job. You pay me, and then you end up paying the subcontractors. You can't borrow against it. You can't refinance. Can't sell your property. It is a real nightmare. Doesn't happen often, but I've been in real estate long enough. My sister's been licensed for 20 years or 25 years, and I've seen enough of these where mechanics lien has to get paid before the property can sell. Check the contractor's information. Look at this. Make sure your contractor has a current business address. He's operating on the back of a pickup truck with a cell phone. Might be hard to find him when you need to get something fixed. Guess what? Almost always something goes wrong. It's almost impossible to do anything 100%. Even with the amount of quality controls that I instill and the amount of management and oversee that I do on my projects. Somebody sticks a screw in the wall and hits a water pipe. It takes a month later, it starts leaking. I have to come back and fix it for free. It's my obligation. Once again, you can find all my license information on the website. Anybody's license information. Contractors are required to have their license number on their business cards and all the bids. Even my bids, every proposal I give out has my license number on it. Most importantly, friends and family have done similar projects. Local customers, material suppliers, subcontractors. These days, it's even easier to find out all the information you need to find out about a contractor because of the internet. It's very, very difficult to hide bad reviews. Part of the reason why I work really, really hard to have 100% customer satisfaction. Because quite frankly, I would rather lose money on a job than have a bad review. It's really that simple. And I have lost money on jobs before. Either the client's being unreasonable, something got overlooked, I'll go back out and fix it. It's just the way it is. It's that important to me. So, let's talk about, let's talk about workers' compensation liability. Guess what? Every licensed contractor in the state of California who has more than himself employed has to have workers' comp. I have workers' comp insurance. Whether I have 1 employee or 10 employees, I have to have workers' comp insurance. Does anybody ever ask to see my workers' comp insurance? Not very often. When I work on condominiums, the condominium association always asks to see that and my general liability and make me generally have to sign on to my policy. But most homeowners don't even ask. I show it to people, I let them know about it. All this information I share typically with homeowners. They're supposed to provide all this information in your written contract. Most contractors don't even use written contracts. General liability insurance, it's not required, but I have it. If it's not, if the contractor doesn't carry it, then you need to ask them how they are going to pay for losses or damages. Otherwise, you or your insurance company could end up paying for it if your insurance even covers it. So make sure your contractor has liability insurance. Workers' compensation cannot be overstated. Someone's injured on your property, contractor doesn't have insurance, you're responsible, your homeowner, your buyer is responsible. And that can be a lot of money, and it's not fun. Also, you should check with your insurance carrier to make sure that workers' compensation insurance is covered by, is adequate by the contractor, because a lot of times you try to carry the minimal amount of insurance. Workers' comp is quite pricey in California. A lot of people don't carry it. That's why so many general contractors don't have employees. They basically just sub everything out. Rite does about 90% of our own work. I don't like subbing things out because I don't have control over my subs like I do over my employees. And I don't, if I have a problem with a subcontractor, then I have to go after that subcontractor. If it's my employee, then the recourse for me is much simpler. It's not it's not the easier, softer way to run a contracting business, but it's how I run my business. Let's see. So, conditional and unconditional waivers and release forms, like I said, that's in your folder. No lien release is binding unless the claimant signs it and delivers a waiver release signed by the claimant or his or her agent. The signed form is effective to release the owner, contract, construction lender, or the bonding company, surety company, insurance company, whoever's providing the bond to get the work done. Make sure when paying your contractor that you get a release form. To be effective, the waiver and release form must follow substantially one of the forms set forth. I printed that release form directly off the CSLB. Hopefully that's adequate. Here is something that they offer on the California State License Board contracting website. I ordered these, they didn't come. Not surprising, our current financial situation, they probably don't have any printed up. But most of the information I'm quoting to you I got directly off of this pamphlet. And so I tried to, what I also included in there was a checklist. I took it off of this pamphlet and retyped it up. Here's the checklist when hiring a licensed contractor. All the stuff we've gone over, but I want to make sure that you have it to review it with your clients, talk to your homeowners about it. You're buying and selling property. If you do half of this list, you're going to be pretty secure. Check the license number, pocket license like I showed you, current list of contact information, building permits, confirm if your contractor will obtain the building permits. Should be in the contract. Get 3 bids and references. Check them out in person. Recent project by the prospective contractor that had similar specifications. You'd be surprised how few people call on my references that I provided in there. Every once in a while somebody calls, right? Most of the time they don't. They certainly never go out and look at the work. Very well, not never. About 2 out of 10 actually go out and look at work that I've done. Materials and expectations should be spelled out in the contract, including cleanup, debris removal, and site security. Timetable and phase for each work, corresponding payment schedule. This one's a little confusing. Number 9, pay no more than 10% of the total down payment of the bid, or $1,000. When I go and sign a contract with somebody, in order for me to continue the process and show up at their place of business or their home on the scheduled start time, I generally ask for 10% or $1,000. Not to be confused with how much I ask for when I'm actually there and I start the job. But this secures the contract between me and the homeowner so that I know that they're serious. They know that I'm going to show up when I say I'm going to show up. Keep all your documents. Research me online. Consider the source. That's directly off their website. Carefully plan your project in advance and clearly define what you want done to your property. Ask your contractor if he or she understands exactly what you want. Pretty straightforward. Be surprised how seldom that actually happens, unless of course I bring it up. So, what needs to be in a contract? Pretty straightforward. You all deal with contracts all the time. Has to have my number, has to have my information, has to have a start date, an end date, deposit amount. All the materials need to be included. Cleanup, timetable for each phase of work, corresponding payment schedule, who gets the necessary building permits, right to cancel mechanics lien, and allowable delays. By law, the right to cancel has to be included with the contract. So there's actually a form right off of the state license board that is a right to cancel, and it's either included in the actual contract itself. It actually has to be in a specific size font. It has to be a specific color. But most people don't understand that they have a right to cancel, and they only have 3 days to cancel. Make sure your cancellation is in writing. You may cancel within 3 days of signing a contract, but it must be mailed before midnight of the 3rd day. Pick up the phone, tell me you don't want to do it. Generally, nobody's going to force anybody to try to perform on a contract. But, do I need a building permit? Big one. According to the California Building Code, no building or structure shall be erected, constructed, enlarged, altered, repaired, moved, improved, removed, converted, or demolished unless a separate building permit for each building or structure has first been obtained from the building department or building official. I don't know how much clearer that can possibly be, but there it is. I get a lot of calls to illegally convert garages, and I say no. And I tell people that you're throwing your money away. Why would you spend that money when you're not going to get that money back out of your property? When you sell it, you run the risk of somebody getting hurt, you run the risk of the city finding out and making you pour concrete down the drainage of your $50,000 garage conversion. The codes vary around the cities, different codes. So you have to be careful with your local building department to find out exactly what you need. Your contractor should do that. Ask questions. Lots and lots of questions. Bonds. Bonds are very confusing for most people. Everybody has a bond. If you're a licensed contractor, it's required by the state. It's $12,500. Is that going to cover anything that I do on your house wrong? Probably not. It's to cover everything that I do on everybody's project. So some bonds are designed to protect you against substantial work that does not meet with local building codes. They do not ensure the financial or professional integrity or competence of a contractor. Institutional lenders. So typically if you're doing a large project and you're borrowing money, a lot of times they ask for a completion bond. Basically states that if there's something wrong with the project doesn't get completed, that there's a bond that guarantees the completion of the project. In general, the bonding companies have to pay no more than the face amount of the bond, and it's usually 1 to 2% of the contract price. Beware, a bond is often not enough to cover multiple complaints made against it or your project. If it's worth more than the value of the bond, it's important to know what bonds do and do not cover. Okay. So what motivates licensed contractors to resolve problems? Well, bonds are really hard to get in the state of California. There's only a few companies that still offer them, and they're expensive. And if you get canceled, it's really, really difficult to get another one. If you have a claim against it, it's really hard to get out from underneath it. So if they pay it, they're required to report it to the state. The contractor is obligated to reimburse for any loss to the bond. The CSLB may suspend my contractor's license until it's repaid. A payment from the bond could affect the contractor's license and livelihood. The surety company may cancel my bond. Isn't that great? You have a bond. If you use it, they cancel it. And bond cancellation may affect the contractor's ability to be rebonded. So You might ask yourself at this point, why in God's green earth would anybody be a general contractor? For God's sake, there's got to be a better way to make a living, right? I love what I do. I love what I do, and I love to be of service to people, and that's why I got into this business. There's a lot of moving parts in general contracting. And, like I said, most general contractors are honest, hardworking, financially responsible craftsmen. They're not businessmen. And it's very easy for things to get out of control, and there's a ton of moving parts. Even on a small project, I might have 8 guys, 10 guys working, and that's a lot of moving parts. So I love what I do, and I do a good job, and I pay the price. And it's California, so what are you going to do? So, somewhere in here, aha! So here we go. Here's some work. Additions, of course, it's LA. Should be spelled with a U, but I couldn't make up my mind. This is a remodel we did. Tore the back of this house open and added 350 square feet and a little trellis and a deck, and kind of what it looked like completed. There was a couple more stages after that, but that was the basic idea. You can't really see this, but what we did here was we took out this entire wall. So there used to be a wall all the way to here and a doorway, just like that. And we took it all the way out, and the door frame, all the way to the ceiling, and all the way down to the floor. Put a little peninsula with a cooktop in it and cabinets on both sides. And we did the cabinets, we did the floor. These are one of the people in El Segundo who called us back just the other day. We did the bathroom, I'm happy to say. Did the same thing here, don't wine, the bar's open. That's what their little wine bar used to look like when they bought their condo. This is our custom cabinet that we made afterwards. I like the after project picture a lot better. I hope you do too. This was the kitchen of the same condo over here on Kelton Street in West LA. They called us back to fix the bathroom the other day because it leaked from the 3rd floor, and we ended up fixing it. So this is their kitchen. Everybody wants white shaker cabinets with subway backsplash and white countertops. So if these bathrooms or these kitchens look alike, it's because that's what people have been asking for. You can see quite a difference. Some things just have to be done, unless you like the tile and the cooktop. Everything I think was, the other side was even worse. This was surprisingly inexpensive, by the way. Even though these cabinets are custom made, we have our own cabinet shop, we make our own cabinets, and we custom built these cabinets for those last 2 kitchens. This was the other side where the fridge is. Like I said, the other side was even worse. So we tore that out, put in this new countertop, and took out the door and put in new cabinets, enclosure for the fridge. So this is something we did in El Segundo as well. I don't know. I kind of like the pink, but the pink and the 2 ceiling fans and the pink countertops and the pink walls and okay, it's a lot of pink. So they wanted something really simple. They didn't want any upper cabinets. They have a white countertop. She wanted the cabinets on little feet there, so her cat had a place to hide. And shaker cabinets without any poles. This is a building in Venice, 4-unit rehab, not so complex. Completely did this building from inside and out. Ended up looking a little bit more like that, smooth coat stucco, whole building. So we do a lot of different work. This is an entire remodel. This is actually a takeover of somebody else's project that they had abandoned the owner and taken them for $250,000, and we're nowhere to be found. We had to come in and rescue them.
How do those type of contractors get away with it? I mean, do they not get reported? Were the people that abandoned the job, were they licensed?
Well, supposedly the guy had a license. Supposedly he took the client to look at projects that he had supposedly done. Turns out he was using somebody else's license. Projects that he took the client to see were projects somebody else had done. And the guy wasn't necessarily a bad guy. He just kind of got into this project and got over his head, and then, he just, who's ultimately responsible, unfortunately, is the owner of the building. They didn't do all the things that I just talked about, and that's why I'm such a stickler about, that's $250,000. And the building looked worse than this when we got there. Okay? I mean, much worse. The insides, I can't even show you the insides, I have so many pictures. It cost another $250,000 at least to rehab this building. Well, actually maybe a little bit less than that, but including appliances and what have you. So, the guy was recommended by somebody else. I know a lot about this project because we spent a lot of time there. I was pretty close with the owner when it was all said and done. So they just didn't check. They didn't check the guy. They didn't do all the things I said you got to do. So we smooth coated it, placed all the windows, all the bathrooms, all the kitchens, the walkway, the stairs, new concrete, new gate. We did it all. New electrical, all the plumbing. It was a big job. But it looks great. Here's another stucco job we did. Not as smooth, but just as good. It's a little bit rough. You can't really see it. It's more of a sand coat, opposed to the smooth coat, which everybody loves these days. We do chimneys and roofs. My wife is a big Disney fan. A shout out to her. Can't really see this, but this is a stacked stone chimney. All these pictures, by the way, are on our website, rightfastconstruction.com. This is a stacked stone chimney that we did from scratch. We rebuilt their front porch, the roof. That's a standard chimney repair. By the way, if you have a fireplace and a chimney in your house, or if your client has a fireplace and a chimney, don't take it out because you can't put it back. Yeah. State of California, at least the city of Los Angeles, has outlawed the building of any wood-burning fireplaces, new construction. So don't take it out. You lose about $25,000 in value. My mother-in-law is an interior designer. She has done a ton of work for us. This is doing a lot with a little. And then finally, Rite Fast Construction, 100% customer satisfaction. That's what we strive for. Why? Well, because repeat business costs a lot more than acquiring new business costs a lot less. Satisfied clients equal great reviews, and referrals, great reviews equal more business. Online reputation is more important than ever. 70% of our leads come from internet referrals and repeat business. The other 30% come from direct marketing. Do it right, makes everything better. So that is all I have. Sorry I went so fast, but my time was fleeting. Most importantly, wife made the cookies. She made a lot of cookies.
Are they good?
She likes to bake.
And I'm going to have another.
We'll eat them.
Eat them, please. Eat the
Okay.
cookies. Anybody have questions?
Let's do some questions.
Questions?
Yep. Go right ahead.
Fire away.
I hope I say this correctly. When you talked about the deposit, 10% or 1,000,
Yes.
can you expound more on that? Because are you saying to get the job started, it's 1,000? Because I thought it was 30% of the total cost.
Well, here's the deal. There is no, great question. Thank you for asking, by the way. There is no set, fast rule as to what the actual amount, other than the 10%. When I say a deposit, and this is often confusing to people, generally what happens is I meet a client, they accept me, they decide to use Rite Fast Construction to do their job. I present them with the bid, all the information I cover here. I'm usually booked for anywhere from 2 weeks to 30 days out, almost consistently all the time. So I pick a date, a start date, they pick a start date, we agree on a start date. They sign the contract. but I don't walk away with any money. So what I usually do at that point, and what the state says I'm allowed to do, is ask for either 10% or $1,000. And that's sort of good faith money, even though it's real money, that says, I agree to come back on this date. You paid me $1,000. You're not going to call me in a week and say, sorry, I know you just booked your entire crew out, or 3 days later, 3 days before you're supposed to start. So that's what that's about, in case you decide to cancel outside the 3 days. No one's going to, I return people's deposits all the time. I ask for a deposit up front because I think it adds value. People perceive it as value, and they're more committed. Stuff that's for free, they just sign a contract and somebody else comes in a day later or something, or they change their mind or whatever it is. So that's what that is. As far as how much money the day, I'm not allowed to collect more than $1,000 or 10%, whichever is less, until I show up at the job site and bring materials or start work. So
At that point, does the client owe you more money?
it all depends on what's in the contract. Typically at that point, I try to get somewhere between 20 and 40% of the balance. So, but I can't ask for that money, and I'm not legally allowed to accept that money until I actually show up and start work or have materials delivered. So if you're having a bunch of windows installed, and I have to order those windows basically on my own dime. So I got to order $10,000 worth of windows. That's out of pocket money for me until they show up at the job site, and I turn around and I say, hey, you need to pay me for those windows. But I can't get a dime other than the 10% before I actually show up at the job and work. And then that number can be whatever you agree upon. It can be $10,000 a week, at the beginning of the week, at the end of the week. It can be 10%.
But all that is written into the contract as far as your payment schedule.
Everything is explicitly spelled out.
Or it should be.
99% of the time. In my contracts, they are.
Because I'm starting to get into flipping, and I just kind of want to ask these questions. Because my first flip, I was burned. But you live and you learn.
Hey,
Don't flip by yourself. I mean, I gotta tell you something. That is like the biggest, riskiest arena for us to play as real estate professionals. If this is not what you do physically, like if this is not what you do and you don't have a contracting team that you're in business with, don't try to do it by yourself.
No, it's just that this person was referred to me through a good friend,
Right.
and
But it was a contractor, right?
yes.
That's what I'm saying. I do flips too, but I'm not flipping with contractors. I'm working with other companies, with other people who that's what they do is flip. And they actually have their own contractors and their own people that they've been working with for years. So I'm more like an investor versus a flipper.
So you don't go find the properties and things.
Yeah, I find the property.
Okay, so
I
then,
find
and
the
then
property,
you,
but I'm not dealing with the hiring of the contractors. I'm working with the company that actually does that. That's what they do.
Okay.
And they've been doing it for like 20 years.
Okay.
And so they have a reputable, there's no risk of the getting burned by the contractor that doesn't show up or that does whatever. It's just a better, it's less risk for me.
I may have to send you an email.
Okay, I'll give you my card,
No problem. Thank you so much.
for sure. Go ahead.
How about permits? Is it difficult to get permits from various cities, or some easier, some harder? Is there a delay on some of them? I've heard people say, contractors say, I don't want to work in the city of LA because the processes, and how does that impact you?
Don't do anything in Santa Monica, Culver City, or the Palisades ever in your life, if you ever know. Yeah, Santa Monica it can be very, very difficult. They are incredibly stringent and don't miss a whole lot. LA is much, much easier to deal with. Culver City is very, very tough. Very, very, very tough. They're independent cities. They're independently run, much smaller. They're easier to manage. LA is massive. It's very difficult. They fired 50% of the inspectors in Los Angeles. The only people that are left were those that were tenured or knew nothing.
Or the
Basically, everybody in the middle, they got rid of. So
Wow.
typically you've got a guy who's very grumpy and really doesn't want to do what he does, or somebody doesn't know what they're doing and has to prove something. So LA, I still prefer LA over. I have a friend of mine who's a developer, develops all over the city, El Segundo, LA, Venice. It's one house in Santa Monica, his own house. He lived there for a year without a certificate of occupancy because, and without legal gas service, because the city of Santa Monica would just torturing him, and he was just battling it out. He'll never even rent in Santa Monica, let alone try to build in Santa. But you see people building in Santa Monica like crazy. So somebody's got it figured out.
You have to know somebody.
You know, I had a great experience. I had a building inspector come out. I ended up, for some reason or another, because of their online system, I ended up calling the chief inspector out. And guy came out huffing and puffing. I'm really good. Well, not so great at this, but I'm really good one-on-one, and especially with inspectors. I get it. My dad was a civil engineer for the city of Santa Monica, the chief civil engineer for the city of Santa Monica for 17 years. The reason the traffic sucks in Santa Monica is partly my dad's fault. And he did it on purpose. So he built the Santa Monica airport, like half of the Santa Monica airport. So I get that mentality. I'm really good with those guys. I haven't met one that I haven't been able to talk down off the cliff yet. Anybody else? Any questions?
I want to talk about handymen. You know, we always hear the reference to handyman. Handyman, I have a handyman, he can do all these things. We don't really need to get a general contractor. So I want the definition of the handyman, and really I'd like to know, when do you use a handyman? When is it good to use a handyman, and what do they do that can, because I mean, obviously, there's tons of handyman out there, and there's some that come with amazing references, and there's some that come with not so amazing references. But I'd like to know, what are the types of things that you would use a handyman for versus actually having to get a license?
And it's a great question, and I get calls all the time to do work, and I let people know, you don't need me. You don't need a general contractor for certain things. You can get a licensed plumber or a licensed electrician to do plumbing and electrical work if it's pretty straightforward and simple stuff and doesn't involve multiple trades. The real definition is that $500 mark. So anything under $500, you want to put a new screen door, you don't need a general contractor or anybody who's licensed, or a permit. You want to put a new screen door in your house. If you've got a clogged drain, you want to change out your garbage disposal. If you've got a stove you want to have pulled and reinstalled, all of those things can be done by a handyman. The handyman trade is very bizarre, to say the least. I have done a lot of handyman work, done a lot of maintenance work. There's a company out there, Handyman, whatever, they have those blue and white vans, they're red and white vans, it's a franchise, you have to pay them a bunch of money. Don't think they're actually, I think those guys might actually be, I don't know if they're licensed contractors or not. They're incredibly expensive. I think their minimum is $250. To me, it's expensive. It's $250 so they just show up at your door, basically. And if you check on Yelp, they're all over the place with their reviews. If people love them or hate them. So it's a very, very tricky, and it's probably, more people call for handyman work than anything else. I mean, I got stuff in my house. my wife looks at me and is like, she just does that. She just looks over at the washer and dryer with this sort of cocked head, like, is there a shelf going up there anytime soon? And I'm just hanging my head, look at my list of guys. I'm like, who can I call? Who's not working right now that I can get in here to help me? So it's a very difficult little pathway to travel, and I have some great guys. I prefer them out all the time, and it is tricky. It's really tricky. But anything that's small like that, your banister's loose, your step is loose, little stuff like that. You can get a handyman to help.
Great. Great.
You have another question?
I do have another question.
Right.
Do you ever let the owner get involved, choosing materials, picking up fixtures, and then delivering the fixtures to you so that you don't have that hassle or whatever?
Every single client I work with. The new trend, of course, these days is everything on the internet, and you can go on and find absolutely any piece of hardware on the planet. Is that everybody wants to get involved and getting their own stuff. They think they're going to save money. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Usually there's a source of frustration and aggravation for the general contractor typically. I try to avoid it. I try to talk people out of it. I try to help them. Because what typically happens is you find something online, they forget to look at that little box that says it ships immediately. It's that little box they hide in the corner that says, after you put it in your shopping cart, it usually says ships in 4 to 6 weeks. Well, guess what? Most general contracting repairs on your house don't take 4 to 6 weeks. So unless you ordered it 4 to 6 weeks before I started, it's not going to show up. I'll be sitting around going, where did it go? I could have gotten it down the street, or I could have used one of my suppliers. But it is the game that we play today, and it's pretty much prevalent throughout the business right now. Almost everybody wants to go get their own tile or their own stuff. And what I try to do is consult with people, either bring a designer in or help them design it themselves and lay the kitchen out for them. Or, I'm more than happy to send somebody out to find, quartz countertops. Guess what? Quartz countertops range from $700 a slab to $2,000 a slab. Am I making any money off a quartz countertop? Generally not. You only buy 1 or 2 for a kitchen. So it's a lot of times I'll sacrifice that stuff and just say, here's my people, these are the people I use, they're in the valley, they only sell to contractors, but here's the cost, and call them up and tell them, go out there and take a look, tell them what you want, and I'll buy it. And I'll have it delivered, and you get it for whatever I pay for it, or $50 for delivery. So yeah, I deal with that a lot. It's very, very common, and it's fine, it usually works out fine most of the time. Anybody else? Eat the cookies, for God's sakes, people. My wife did. Thank you so much.